So you guys know that I'm not a professional baker, but when my family wants something sweet, I do like to bake. And I had a friend reach out to me and she wanted to see a recipe video for honey buns. So guess what? I made honey buns today. Let me show you how I made them. To start, I'm going to work on the dough. So here I have 3/4 of a cup of warm evaporated milk, and I've added 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And what I did is just warmed up the milk, added the yeast, and let it set for 10 minutes until it started to get foamy and frothy on the top. That lets you know that the yeast is alive and active. So I'm going to add that into my bowl. I'm going to be using my stand mixer today, but you definitely can do this by hand. I'm adding 1 large room temperature egg, 2 tablespoons of cooking oil, I used grapeseed oil, and a 1/3 cup of honey, 1½ tablespoons of sugar, 3½ cups of bread flour. You could also use all-purpose flour, but bread flour does give it a nice chewy texture. A 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and I like to add that on top of the flour. And on the lowest setting of my stand mixer, I'm going to let everything combine and mix. And then I'm going to speed it up and let it go for about 5 to 7 minutes. Once your dough looks like this, after about 5 minutes, it's done. If you find that your dough is a little too wet or sticky and it doesn't come off of the sides of the bowl, you can add an extra tablespoon of flour until it comes together. But now what I'm going to do is just knead it for about a minute just to get it into a ball shape. And then I'm going to add it to a well-oiled bowl. I added 2 tablespoons to a large bowl, and I'm just going to coat my dough ball. And once it's coated, I'm going to place a towel over the top and place it in my oven with the oven light on only. It's not going to be on, but in a non-drafty place, and I'm going to let it proof and rest for about 2 hours or until it doubles in size. So my dough has rested and proofed for about 2 hours. It's a little over 2 hours, and the rest time will vary depending how drafty your kitchen is. But I'm going to punch out the air, and I'm just going to press it into a rectangular shape. Now that it's pressed out, I'm going to cut it into squares. Typically, I use this recipe for 6 large honey buns, but I'm going to create 8 today to make them a little bit smaller. But if you want the 6 large, go for it. Now I'm going to take one section, stretch it out into a long piece, kind of roll it into a snake, just to get it to stretch out a little bit. And I did not weigh my dough. I did the best I could. If you want to weigh your dough, just weigh it and divide it evenly between 6 or 8 pieces. So I've pressed out my dough flat. I'm taking some softened butter. Here I have about 3 tablespoons of softened butter on the side. And this is 1½ tablespoons of sugar mixed with 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And I'm just going to sprinkle that on one side of my long piece of dough. And after I sprinkle it evenly or as best as possible, I'm going to roll this into an oval shape or as best as you can. I'm kind of eyeballing a lot of this. And you don't want to tightly roll it because it needs room to be able to sort of proof once again. And once it bakes, you want it to bake out and not up. So do the best you can, pinching off the end. I can already tell I'm going to have problems with these, but it's okay. They're going to taste great. So I am going to repeat the process for all of my honey buns. And then I'm going to place them on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. I'm going to place a cloth over them and let them rest and proof for another 25 to 30 minutes. So these have rested for another 25 to 30 minutes. So now I'm going to bake these in a preheated oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 minutes. Now that these are done, I'm going to place them on a rack to cool slightly. I still want them warm because now I'm going to work on the icing for these. Here I have 300 grams of powdered sugar or confectioner sugar. That's about 2.5 cups or so. I'm just going to give this a mix to break up any lumps. You could also sift this. That really works a lot better. Now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons of evaporated milk. Give it a mix. And I'm just going to add another tablespoon at a time until I get a thick icing or glaze for this. If you add too much milk all at once, you might have a thin icing, which still is tasty, but I really want a thick glaze just like this. So while my honey buns are still warm, I'm going to dollop on spoonfuls of this icing. And actually, I'm missing one honey bun because my son ate it. So as you can see, some of them didn't stay tightly rolled, but that's okay because they are still good. Once they are all iced, I like to let them set for about 15 minutes and then serve. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.